All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to Scanned PDF Accessibility in Adobe Acrobat Pro. Once again, I'm Melissa Romanato, and here with me is Tyler Windners from MSF&W Consulting. And today is one of our special topic sessions. We're going to learn how to make a scanned PDF documents accessible using tools in Adobe Acrobat Pro. Before we jump in, just a couple housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and the recording will be posted for viewing later. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or use the chat and we'll answer that question while we're on topic. So while I'm talking, Tyler will be keeping an eye on that for us. And also those presentation materials like the slideshow have been provided and are posted as well. All right, so let's get started. Um, as we know, there are numerous ways to make a PDF. We've talked about the ways that we recommend you do that. For example, using Save as Adobe PDF when you're in a Microsoft Office product. There are other ways that are not quite as reliable, things like using the regular Save As and then changing the file type. We've talked about ways we do not recommend creating PDFs, like printing to PDF, which only creates that physical view layer, one of the three layers of our PDF. And another way that we haven't talked much about yet is scanning. So scanning is also doesn't create a very accessible PDF in the sense that it is very much exactly like printing to PDF. It creates only the physical view of the document. However, sometimes scanning is all you can do, or it is what you need to do because there are signatures or something else added manually, like a seal or a stamp in the document that makes it kind of official. And these things can't always be done in Word or other original formats. So in that case, the document is scanned and then the accessibility of it must be handled in the PDF. So we're going to use a sample document and see what that process is like. So I'm going to go ahead and open a document here. And you should be seeing that in Acrobat now. And on this document, we're gonna do what we usually do, which is start by running our accessibility checker. That's kind of always our first step to see what the status of the current document is and help us get a sense of where we need to start and what we need to do in order to remediate the document. And we immediately see when we run the checker that there are a lot of issues. Um, we've got, I don't know, 20 or so failures here in the accessibility checker. And let me zoom in here and make that a little bit larger. And if we open the first section, the document section, you'll see that our very first error message indicates that this is an image-only PDF. That means that it is scanned, each page is one image, and that the document does not contain a content layer and it does not contain a tags layer, as you can see by the second failure there. Um, so sometimes we'll get this error message for our scanned PDFs and sometimes we won't. With more modern scanners and scanning apps, we don't always see this error because there's a little more there than just the image, just enough to pass the image only rule, but it's still not enough to pass the rest of the checker. So you may or may not get the image only PDF failed error. If you do, then you know right away that the process that you need to do is the scan and OCR process. If you do not get the error, there are a couple other indicators to know when you're dealing with a scanned document. Sometimes you can just look a little more closely at the document and tell that it has been scanned. And that could be from the way that the process, how that document came to you, or because it has signatures, or simply because the way it looks, like, it's kind of fuzzy. Maybe there are some extraneous marks on it, or it's kind of old looking or wonky, like a little crooked or wrinkled. So when a scanned document or an image only document needs to be made accessible, we've got to start by doing two things. Well, we got to start by adding the content layer and then we can add the tags layer. So remember, we've got the physical view, the content, and the tags. Right now, we only have the physical view. We're going to start by adding the content layer and then we can add that tags layer. So I can kind of tell another thing I can do is when I click on the document here, you'll see that I can't like select just a line of text like I would in a typical document. When I click, the actual entire page gets highlighted. And that's another indicator that I've got a scanned document because that whole page is an image and it's true on both of the pages. Okay, so once we've identified that it is a image only document, whether that's via the checker or via other clues, we are going to use the Scan in OCR tool to recognize the text and create that content layer of the document. So that's going to be our first step. So we're going to start by going to our tools. And I do want to point out I'm using the classic version of Acrobat Pro. I am not using the new version. There is a limitation in the new version, something that we cannot do that we can do in the classic version when it comes to Scan in OCR, and I'll point that out when we get there. All right, so I'm going to open my Scan in OCR tool. You can either find it, I've got mine docked here, but you can look in your tools. It should be in the Create and Edit section, and it kind of looks like a little scanner with some magic stars around it. So I'm going to click on that tool, and it's going to open my Scan in OCR toolbar there at the top of the screen. So just like when I've gone into kind of a little different mode, like prepare forms mode or whatever, I've got this extra toolbar that I'm now going to work with. I'm going to go ahead and just for now close my my tags, or I'm sorry, my checker panel over there just to get a little more space on the page. So
Melissa?
one second. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Susan
Please do.
Churchill is trying to get into the meeting. Can somebody let her in?
Sure.
I can take care of that.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Matt.
Sorry.
No problem. All right, so I'm going to start by my Scan in OCR process by recognizing the text in the document. So I'm saying, hey, we know this is a picture, but can you tell what is text? So I'm going to say recognize text. In this case, I'm going to say in this file that's already open. And I can choose which pages. Sometimes we have a document where some of the pages are scanned and some of the pages are not scanned. Like sometimes you might see where the first few pages are printed and maybe the last page that has a signature is scanned. So you can choose which pages in the document. You can do arrange the current page, or in my case, I'm going to do all pages because the entire thing is scanned. And I'm going to leave my language as English. I don't need to change anything in my settings. And I'm just going to hit recognize text. And you may or may not notice in the bottom right hand of the screen, a little process is running. And depending how long your document is, you kind of may see or not see that process. It will take a little while if you've got a longer document. Mine was pretty quick and you might have missed it. But it just runs a little bit of a process and it doesn't really give you any indication that it's done. But once it is done, I can go back up to my recognize text option and I'm going to choose correct recognize text this time. And when I do that, it's going to open a subsequent toolbar where I can see the image that it's identified and then the text it's recognized that image as. And I have the option to make corrections here and accept or change the recognized text. So, you know, here it's kind of acknowledging I'm just a machine, I'm not a person, I'm doing my best. I need some human judgment on some of these things. So I'm going to, let me zoom in a little in my content area so it might be a little easier to see. Unfortunately, I can't make the toolbar bigger. I can't make it taller. I can't make the text bigger. I can't make the text box any bigger. So, so it takes a little bit of close-up viewing here to see what it's doing. But you'll notice that I've got the top of kind of my seal image showing in the image box, and down below it's actually got a box around it in red with kind of a pink background. And that's how I know what's currently selected there. And it's recognized that as slash semicolon FR tilde tilde. So it's done and maybe some spaces. It's done a guess, but it's nowhere close. And I'm actually going to remove what is in there. I'm just backspacing it out. And when I clear it out completely, you can't see it because it cuts off, but it says this is not text. And so I am telling the system, hey, this is not text. This is part of a seal image, and it's not going to be text on the screen. I don't want to type text to replace this. So once I've cleared that out, I can hit accept and move to the next suspect. Now, this is the feature that is not available in the new version of I shouldn't say the new version, the new view of Acrobat. So we've talked a lot in the past about switching between enable new Acrobat and then returning to old or classic Acrobat. And this is an instance where in the new Acrobat, I am unable to clear this out and hit accept. The accept button is grayed out when I've cleared this out. So that's a current limitation that may change over time. We'll keep an eye on it and let you know if we notice any changes. All right, so I've cleared it out. I'm going to hit accept. I move to my next little piece. Again, I'm still in this kind of seal area. I'm going to clear that out and accept, and I'm going to do that for my last area there. And there you can see where it actually says this is not text. You can see the whole thing. And I've got another one on the right, just kind of a little line. And now I'm down into kind of the meat of the document, right? I've got my my executive department here, and it's showing, it's a little hard to see, but it's showing the capital E. And it's kind of a really fancy font, right? Very stylized, I don't know, Gothic looking font. And it's recognized that E as a square bracket, exclamation point, F. And that is not correct. So I'm going to clear it out. And I'm just going to type the capital letter E. So I'm going to type exactly what I'm seeing in this image box. And it's just the letter E. And it is capitalized. So I'm going to type it in there and hit accept. And then I've got my next suspect is the rest of the word executive. So I'm going to, again, type that in. And I know it's a little weird because my E seems like it's split from the rest, but it doesn't really matter as long as all the letters are there. And we already did the E, so we got the rest of the word. I'm going to accept. And the next one is the word department. It got the capital letter with it, but it came across as J, QRARLNTMT. So I'm just going to type over that department, and I'm going to use the standard, capitalization that matches what's on the screen. And then it got a little bit of the bottom of this word Iowa. This state of Iowa text is not only really fancy, it's got kind of a shadow on it, and it's also not straight horizontally. It has a curve to it. And that's going to make it difficult for the software to detect. So I am going to mark this as not text, and I'll show you how we're going to deal with that down the road. All right, it jumped ahead. I'm scrolled in pretty far, but it jumped ahead to page 2, and it has found the signature here of Paul D. Pate. And again, it's recognized it as some gibberish. I've got a slash, an I, a colon, and a couple other characters there. I'm going to clear those out because this is not text. This is an actual signature. And it's going to be important in remediating this document that I identify this as a signature, because whoever is reading this or listening to it with a screen reader needs to know this is a signed document. It's official. It's not just there, as words. Somebody actually signed the document. So that's important information. So this is not text. So I'm going to clear that out and hit accept. And I get a message saying all suspects in the document have been corrected. I'm going to say okay. I'm still in my Scan in OCR tool. I still have my extra toolbar for recognized text open there. And the next step is to do a manual review. So in this first pass, Acrobat, I identified the suspects and said, these are the things that we're not sure we got right. But I'm going to do a full check and make sure that the things they think they got right, they actually got right. So I'm going to do that using the review recognized text. And I want you to look at the document as I check this checkbox and kind of see what happens in the physical view. So it kind of draws the recognized text on top of the physical view that's there. And it allows me to kind of toggle back and forth and compare and make sure that everything is, spelled correctly, the letters are right, there are no spaces missing, etc. in the meat of the document here. So I'm just going to go through and read this. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell. You get some things that are kind of close together. Like it's a little hard for me to tell right there if in and the are two separate words or one word. And I'm just going to double click. And when I double click, it selects it, it pops it up into my toolbar. And you can see that it has the words in and the, and it's recognized as in the, one word, no space. So I am going to go ahead and correct that and add that space and hit accept. And it just says I corrected it. And I'm going to continue to go through and do those kinds of checks for the rest of the document. And so when I find something that I'm not sure that looks correct and that might need some correction, and I might need to toggle on and off a couple times to make sure that I'm looking and seeing everything correctly. Like I get down here to a number, I want to double check and make sure that looks right, that it's not an I or a 1 so that I can tell the difference. I do see a couple places where it looks like words are mashed together. So if I click on that, you'll see that actually of in a space is its own and Iowa is its own. So I can just hit accept. I don't need to change it just because I marked it. I marked it and said, I'm not sure about this. If it recognized it correctly, I can just hit accept and move on. I don't have to do anything special. But I know there are probably some places in this document where it didn't get it quite right. It's always hard to look. There we go. I've got this of Iowa where there's no space between the words, and the I in Iowa is a small I instead of a capital I. So I'm going to correct that. And let's see if I find any others. Oh, here's another of Iowa. I'm just going to click it. And what I can do is I can just click things and then go through and correct them all at once. So let's keep reading and see if we find any more. Not sure. That looks a little weird. Here's one. It looks like that's supposed to be corn, but it looks like com. And I'm going to keep on going here. Let's see. It looks like here I've got one, and also here on this 24 that cuts off and it says PO instead of F. Maybe down here with this, some things running together. So I can click through and find all the ones that I think might need corrected. And so I'm going to just start going through and making those corrections up at the top here and accepting. Whoops. And in this case, the A looks okay, so I'm going to leave that alone. Actually, yeah, that A looks okay, but I made those lowercase. I'm going to correct that. So if you corrected something, you did something wrong, you can always click on it again to recorrect it. And it will start looking weird in this overlay, but don't get hung up on that. It's just doing its best to overlay it and it doesn't quite line up. So don't worry too much about that. This one I changed to 20FO instead of PO, and I actually added the end of the word there because where that signature crosses it, it kind of got cut off. So I just went ahead and added it in. Got another spacing and capitalization issue. Another one with space. This is my corn that came across incorrectly. Whoops. And I think that was it. Those are all the ones that I found. Um, so again, I can do, a little more double checking, make sure I didn't miss anything. And once I'm completely done with that, I'm going to want to save my document and make sure that anything that I did, I do not lose. Okay, so I have now gone through the scan and OCR process. I'm going to close out of my scan and OCR toolbar. I'm going to zoom back out a little bit and I'm going to rerun my accessibility checker. And the first thing I'll see is that my image only PDF error there is now gone. It's now marked as passed. So it's not just an image only. I have created that content layer that we need. But I still have some other steps that I need to take to fix all the other errors in this document. And the first one, and the main one, is that it says tagged PDF failed. So again, we started with our physical layer, our physical view layer. We added the content layer, but we know that we need tags in order for a document to be accessible. So now we need to add that tags layer. And there are a couple different ways that we can do this. We can auto tag the document, or we can manually tag the document using the reading order tool. And it's really a preference and it kind of depends on the document. If you have a very long document, then I would recommend auto tagging, and then you can, fix things with the reading order tool where necessary. But hand tagging a long document will take a very long time. But when I've got a shorter document like this, then sometimes I like to hand tag it just because I have a little more control over what happens. So let's walk through that process of using the reading order tool to tag this document. And you'll notice, see, no tags. So I'm going to open my reading order tool and I'm just going to go through and I'm going to start selecting the content and marking it up. So I drew a really big box because I wanted to make sure I got all the text there. And I'm just going to mark that as a text paragraph. Do the same thing on the next line. I think this is going to be my heading level 1, proclamation of disaster emergency. And then I've got a bunch of paragraphs on the page, and you can kind of see behind me on the left where that tags tree is building. So everything that I'm doing over here with the reading order tool is getting created in the tags tree. And I'm going to start by getting everything in that tags tree, and then I'll have some other issues to deal with. I'll still need to add my alternate text where applicable and check my reading order and do all those kind of normal things that I do through the rest of the accessibility checker. But let's get this content tagged. Let's talk about these pieces of content. So I've got a seal here, and that's not text, but it is a figure. It's an image. So I'm going to mark it as a figure, and that will allow me to add alternate text. And that alternate text can let the user know, hey, there is an official seal of the state of Iowa on this document. The seal is present. So the presence of the seal is important and needs to be conveyed via the alternate text. I also am going to mark the signature here along with the lines under it as an image or figure, and that's because I need alternate text there. I can't get that text separately because the signature crosses over it, so it gets kind of muddled there, and I'm not able to uh, isolate that text. So that's why I didn't worry about getting that marked as text. And it looks like I'm able to draw my box around this one, but I'm not going to panic yet. I'm going to show you how to deal with that. So let's keep moving down and we'll come back to that. So I've got my attest text. I've got a signature here. I'm going to grab this text below it first and then see if I can get this signature tagged. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Doesn't look like it wants to do it now. I'm going to save. I'm going to try it one more time here before. Yeah, that time it will not let me. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got so far. So we've got, zoom out here. We've got our heading, we've got our paragraphs, we've got some things kind of in the wrong order, but we've got most of our content, but we still have some stuff at the very top that's missing, as well as the signatures down here at the bottom. And I'm just trying to get these in the right order. I've got some reading order issues here. Let's see if I can get those corrected while I'm here. We'll always do another check of that, but I want to make sure that that I start in the right spot. Okay, I'm gonna make that bigger too. Okay, so I've got some tags, but I know I'm not quite there yet. And if I run my checker and I say fix, you'll see that it says it's passed. There are tags in my tag tree, but not quite everything is there. And I can tell because I've got some errors here that says I have some untagged content, and it also has some others in the document area and the figures. So we're going to keep working through those. So what I need to do is I need to get this untagged content tagged. And that is the signature there on the second page, the first signature. But then there's some other content that I wasn't able to tag up here either. So I'm going to show you how to deal with that. I'm going to start just up here at the very top of my document, and I'm going to right click and choose Find Unmarked Content. And that is going to allow me to go through and find anything that's not tagged and tag it. So you can, might be a little difficult to see, but here in the physical view, there is a border around the entire page. So it's kind of like, think about it as the background, like the text was sitting on top of this page. And I'm going to tag that image, and that's all that it found on the first page. So I've got an image here, and I need to put that in a figure tag. So I'm going to create a new tag and put my image in it. And this figure tag is going to give me a handle that I can provide alternate text for anything on the page that wasn't recognized as text. And in this case, it's that state of Iowa kind of curved text at the top, as well as the seal in the middle. So I'm going to use this figure tag as my handle to provide alternate text for that image. And I'm going to say state of Iowa. I'm not going to write anything about the seal. The seal is just kind of part of the stylized text logo, combo text image logo there. And then it also is on the second page of the document, and I'm going to talk about it there. So it would be kind of redundant to put it in both. So I'm going to just put State of Iowa, Executive Department, go on through the rest of the page. And now I am again missing some content here on the second page. I'm missing the signature of the governor as well as the signature of the Secretary of State. So again, I'm going to just somewhere on this page do my find unmarked content. I'm going to choose find. Again, it's going to find the whole page. I'm going to go ahead and tag that. It did find the governor's signature, so I'll tag that. And now it's very hard to see, but it's also finding at the very top, there's like a, I don't know, an extra border or a line that it's finding. So I'm just going to go ahead and tag that as well. And I'm just going to tag everything that it finds. And that way I can use it as a handle for my alternate text, or if I don't need it, I can artifact it. So let's add figure tags for our two new images. So, whoops, it remembered it from last time. Let me add one more. Type as figure. And I'm just going to grab those two images and put them inside. And this is going to be enough. I'm not going to need this path, that line that's kind of at the very top. So I'm going to go ahead and artifact that. I don't need that. But I am going to use these figures kind of as a handle for my alternate text. So I'm going to grab them and put them in the correct place in my reading order. Didn't quite get that one in the right place. And then I can add alt text. So I've got my first paragraph. I've got my seal. I'm going to zoom in a little so I can do a better job. And for my alternate text for the seal, I'm going to type seal of the great, or I'm sorry, it says the great seal, the great seal of the state of Iowa. And I'm not gonna describe it. I'm not gonna say it's gold, and I'm not gonna say in the middle it's got, you know, a person and some flags, and I'm not sure what else. But it's important for people to know the seal is present, right? It has been official. This document is official. And now I've got two other figures. I'm going to swap these around. But the next one is my handle to get my governor's signature there in the alt text. So I'm going to do him, Reynolds, and I can do this a couple different ways. I'm just going to put signature. You could do signed by. Maybe that's the direction you want to go. But we need to know not only the name, but that it's actually been signed, that it's official, that the signature is present. And then I'm also going to include the text that shows below this signature. Sorry, Governor. Okay. So I've got signed by, so that we know the signature is there and present, and then I've got the name and the title. And I'm going to do a similar thing here for the Secretary of State. We weren't able to grab that exact signature, but like we did on the first page, we're just going to use kind of like the outline of the page as our handle to add that alternate text. So again, I've got Paul D. Pate, and I'm going to do the signed by just to be consistent across the document here. And then I've got his name and title. All right, let me save. And I'm going to zoom out a little. I'm going to run my checker again and see where we are. I've resolved my tagged content failed error because I did the find unmarked content and tagged everything and either used it as a handle for some alternate text or artifacted it. But back up top, we have a couple errors that you're probably going to have in anytime your document's completely scanned, you'll probably have this primary language failed error. And that's simply because it's not getting that information from the source like it usually does with Word, for example. So I can just right click, choose fix. It's going to default to English. That's what it is. So I'm just going to say, okay. So that's a simple one. Similarly with tab order, this often occurs on documents that have run the scan and OCR process. I can just right click, fix, and say okay. And then my remaining error, other than double checking my reading order, again, is my title. You know, we know that the title will come over from Word, for example. It doesn't have anything to bring over from another source. So I can just fix that by doing what you already know how to do, which is typing that in. All right. Easy. I'm going to save because I haven't done that in a minute. I probably should be doing that more often. And now I've got my manual checks left. The first one is the reading order, which we know how to do. The second is color contrast, and that's one where we usually say, you know, take care of it in the source. It's difficult, if not impossible, to change it in the PDF version. And in this case, it is impossible. This again is still just you know, an image. It's kind of, it turned it into text, but it's kind of sitting on top. It's kind of a weird scenario, but we're not going to be able to change or correct color contrast in this document. So luckily in this case, we're good. It's black on kind of this yellowish color and it's just fine. We don't have color contrast issues, but color contrast is something you're probably not going to be able to fix in any scanned documents. Let's do our reading order check just by arrowing through. It might look a little bit weird because again, I'm starting with the entire page outline here because I've used that for my state of Iowa text. But I'm just going to make sure I ended up with things in the order that I wanted. Again, whole page, that's my signature for Paul D. Pate. And I actually realized I did something wrong here, and some of you might have noticed it when I was doing it, but when I did my alternate text for Paul D. Pate, I added the text that was below it, the name and title, similar to the governor, but I realized that's actually down here in text. So let's get rid of that. I don't want people to hear that twice. So I'm going to remove that and keep the text version that's below. All right, so I'm all the way through this one and I am good to go to share or post the content. All right. When you're working with scanned documents, there's going to be a lot of variation in the documents. They come from different places, they look different, and how good of a scan and OCR process you can get is going to vary quite a bit. And because of that, we're just going to walk through real quick on a second document here to just kind of see if there are any differences or anything that we run into that we need to deal with a little bit differently. So we're going to start with the same process. We're going to run our checker. And here's an example where I am passing the image only PDF message there. Even though when I click, I'm getting the entire page, there's something on here, probably it was scanned on a newer scanner, and it's something on there, whatever it is, that it knows there's something besides an image. We're not sure what it is, but we still can tell that because I can't, select this text, that I need to scan an OCR. So this is maybe an example of a slightly more modern scan. So let's use our scan and OCR tool again. I'm going to recognize text in this file. Going to run through it, ran through really fast because this is a short one, just one page. And now I'm going to correct that recognized text. Zoom in a little bit so we can see better. And MD7, that came across correct. So I'm just going to accept. And it says, hey, that's the only one that we weren't sure about. So let's go ahead and do our review of the recognized text. And this allows us to, again, kind of toggle on and off, look for common problems. I'm looking especially at things like L's and ones. I've got a lot of numbers here to make sure those came through, zeros and O's, and make sure those came through okay. Looking pretty good so far. I'm looking as closely at that phone number. I've got to kind of toggle on and off a few times here. I'm noticing, let me zoom in a little. I'm noticing just a bracket difference here. It's got like kind of the curly bracket instead of the regular parens. So I'm going to select that and come back to it. Not the end of the world, but it's can be a little confusing or weird. Looks like we got a few of those. One has it on both. Again, I'm going to pay close attention down here to this phone number. I've got a URL. That one ends with it's got a curly bracket as well. And then this one is a little hard. You might want to keep your eyes down on this 888-838-1458 number. When I click review recognized text, it's seen as a 68 instead of a 58 there at the end. So I'm going to select that. It needs some attention. And I think that is it. So let's start correcting. I've kind of accumulated a list up here. I'm going to make those corrections to the numbers and the bracket types here. Replace those curly brackets with parentheses. And sometimes I'm just fixing one character. Sometimes it's easier just to type over the whole thing. So whatever is easiest for you. Again, the text is really small, so sometimes it's safer to retype because it's hard to tell what you're changing. Okay, so I think I got all of those corrected. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to save. And if I run my checker, it's not really going to look any different. It is still going to have that tag PDF failed. I still do not have any tags in this document, but I can go ahead and get those tags added now. That's going to be my next step, and then I can work through whatever problems remain. And this time I'm going to auto tag it just to show a different method. Probably, I don't know, may or may not do that. It's a short one, so I probably would hand tag it, but I want to show you that you do have some choices, especially when you've got a longer document. So I'm going to choose auto tag. It's going to run through the process here. Taking a minute. One note about auto tagging versus hand tagging. If you have a document that's already tagged, but you have one page kind of maybe just inserted at the end or in the middle or somewhere that is scanned, then you'll want to scan and OCR that page, and then you'll want to hand tag it because you don't want to auto tag over the whole document. It doesn't deal with it a page at a time when it comes to the tags. So in that case, I would recommend hand tagging if you have one that's kind of inserted in there. This is taking longer than I expected, especially for such a small page. I'll let it run for another minute or so, but I'm wondering if it's hung up. Yeah, it looks like it's not I'm gonna cancel that. And I'm actually gonna close my document and just reopen it. I was clicking in around a lot and I don't know if I somehow confused it. So let's try that process again of auto tagging. There we go. Okay, well, it did a terrible job. It did not, it seems like it still didn't finish. It got the page number and the page number only. I'm going to try to run that process one more time and see if we get any better, but it seems like my auto tagging is not working there. There we go. Okay, third time's a charm in this case. So there you can see it did go through an auto tag. And it looks pretty good. So I've got kind of that border again as a figure, which we've seen, that's common. I've got date, some address text, and it does look like it got my list and even my nested list. So that's very nice. So it's some work that I do not need to do since I can't do that with the reading order tool anyway. So, okay, so let's save that and run our checker and see what else we need to do. So I've got an alternate text error, and that's because the page itself got tagged as an image, and then it's missing a title. This time it could get the language. So again, it was starting with some information. However, I don't really need this figure. I don't need a handle this time. There's nothing that I need to have alternate text for, but you might have noticed it did miss the MD7 text at the beginning. We know it recognized it as text, but for some reason it didn't tag it. So I'm going to tag that as a paragraph. So that leaves just the page. I'm going to artifact that. I don't think I need, I'm looking at the words there. Yeah, I don't need this image for anything. I don't need to provide alternate text for anything. So I'm going to artifact that image and just delete it. And now I've got my MD7. And if you want to kind of regroup any of this content, that can be done. This came through as a list item because it starts with a number. That's kind of weird. It's actually part of the address here and not part of a list item. So I'm just going to grab that and throw it all into my list and get rid of that unnecessary list markup there. So I've got that. I do need a heading level 1 on this document. Um, I guess you could ROU. I didn't. I'm going to go ahead and add one just to kind of identify the main topic of the document. And I think in that case, it's going to be the memo line here, the reference, what this memo is regarding is going to be my heading level 1. And if someone, knows the actual content of this, that may or may not be quite correct, but I'm going to go ahead and mark that. And the rest of it looks pretty good. I do notice at the very bottom, I have kind of a random page number, this 306. And I am going to artifact that. We've talked about that before, how page numbers aren't very helpful in the tags because the page number is controlled by the view. So if they're viewing it, on a web page or an Acrobat Reader, it has its own page number, and that is all controlled through the program itself. So this 306 is not very helpful there. So I'm going to artifact that. And again, I just need to add my title here. And I'm going to copy my H1, right click, copy contents to clipboard. And then if I go over here to my title, I can just paste that in and I don't have to make sure I retyped it correctly. All right. Final check on my reading order, and I think everything looks good. So sometimes it might be beneficial to use that that auto tagging, even though it took me a few tries to get it to work here, it did give me some help in, especially with these lists and nested lists that I didn't have to tag manually since the reading order tool doesn't allow me to create list items when I'm manually tagging. So another note, I did have to close out of the document and come back into it. Sometimes you'll see things that don't look right or look weird. That's why we say save every time you do something you like. That way, if something's not working, it looks strange, you can close out and come back in and kind of refresh that view without losing any of your work. Any questions about anything that we've done here today with our scanned PDF documents? Okay. I do want to give you a reminder. We had a little switch in the schedule this morning. Sounds like you guys have next Wednesday, the 26th off. It's a holiday for you, so congratulations. I'm jealous. And because of that, we have moved our office hours. Instead of them being on Wednesday, the 26th at 9 a.m., we're going to hold those office hours on Tuesday, the 25th at 9 a.m. So we will have an office hours session before next week's holiday. And we encourage you to attend that if you can. And of course, as always, you can email us with any questions or problems or things that you'd like to address at that office hours session. And it can be related to scanned PDF documents, but it does not have to be. Whatever topic you need help with, we're here. All right. Well, thank you guys for your attention today. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a good afternoon. We'll see you next week.